Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys had a great day today. This Saturday, got to get right out of the way. We have our second Buckeye Scoop meetup at Twin Peaks off Polaris Parkway in up by Westerville, Columbus area. So any of you guys that are in town, come down to it. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Talked with the folks today. They're very excited to have us. So we're going to go from 11 to 2. Might spill over a little bit later, but 11 to 2. They open the doors at 11, so get there early. Get your seat. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have the whole crew walking around. Got a surprise announcement I think you guys are going to really like, so really excited about that. So looking forward to seeing you all. Again, the Buffalo Wild Wings deal that we did for the spring game broke all of their records, national sales later that day. And appreciate you guys coming out, having a great time. So I'd love to see you guys, see your smiling faces. If you wear Buckeye Scoop gear, Nevadabuck's credit card will buy you a free beer. We actually have tickets this time so that we can actually account for it. So wear your Scoop gear. Excited to see you guys. And it's going to be an absolute blast. Michigan losing their top target to Ohio State is delicious, and we're going to get into all of that. The Buckeyes are on absolute fire on the recruiting trail as the coaches head off on vacation over the next few weeks. But the work never stops when you want to be the best in the world. That being said, as always, we appreciate you guys being a part of our show. This will be a huge show tonight because you guys make it one, as always. So get those super chats fired up. Again, our super chats go right into our Pay It Forward fund. We've signed up a lot of people that are in the armed forces, active military, retired military. We've hired, signed up disabled veterans, police officers. And I know I said the boys in blue. I had someone correct me yesterday, so make sure you say the women in blue too. So our women that are in blue as well. We appreciate all of you, all of our first responders, firefighters. Thank you all for keeping us safe. You guys are the heroes that run in when everyone else is running out. And we appreciate you guys so very much. So again, thank you for all of our super chats. It's exceptionally generous of you guys to take care of our military members and our first responders. And they get memberships to BuckeyeScoop.com, which is the premier Ohio State website. If you guys love Ohio State football and you're not a member of it, you're crazy. It's like getting Sunday. If you're an NFL football fan, it's like getting Sunday ticket. You get all access, inside information, recruiting information. We're turning up the heat right now. It's been absolutely incredible on our message board, and we'd love for you guys to join our Buckeye Scoop family on our board. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys kicking it with us each and every night. Again, it's a huge show because you guys make it one, nobody else, and we appreciate what you do. It's great to be here, and it's always a pleasure to have you guys here. With that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada. Maxwell Roy is a really good-looking defensive tackle. We're going to toss his film on here in about a minute or two. Your thoughts? He's trending towards Ohio State. He is a big-time D tackle. Larry Johnson is not dead, despite what some of the nefarious people in the Woody Hayes and some of the dumbest people in the media said last year. He seems like he's doing pretty good, and he's cleaning up on the recruiting circuit. What are your thoughts of him? Because Michigan really coveted this guy, and it looks like the Bucs are about to snipe him and make him part of Ohio State's brotherhood. What are your thoughts?
Well, this one is particularly funny just because all the Michigan people, they were kind of thumping their chest about Michigan recruiting's back, and this guy was kind of the crown jewel of their class. And we got Maxwell Roy. We're back. We're going to be a top 5 team. We got 9 crystal balls this weekend. And sure enough, then a day later, the crystal balls start flipping, and then they're like, oh no, it doesn't look like Maxwell Roy is going to Michigan. It looks like he's going to Ohio State. So I have to admit, I laughed particularly hard on this one because Larry's felt like it wasn't Larry at this point in time, and we've used this expression before, but it's never been truer that is in 2024. They're picking, not recruiting right now. They're selecting, and there's just a lot of good players, and it's just a question of which ones they're going to pick to bring on board. So inevitably, there's going to be some guys that there's not going to be room at the end. And whether that was Maxwell Roy, whether that was Odom, whomever that is, it's not that, Ohio State is just, they're on such a recruiting run right now. And, it's funny when Michigan goes out there and they think they have a guy, and then Ohio State goes in, pulls the kid, another New Jersey kid. Looks like he's going to be committed to Ohio State. Looks like it could be happening relatively shortly. And, rumors of Larry Johnson's demise have been greatly exaggerated because this would be another great addition to the class. with a bunch of guys to come. I mean, you've got so many good players that are still in the hopper. And we've talked about Malik Autry a little bit yesterday. Riley Pettijohn. I mean, obviously David Sanders. Obviously DeCorian Moore. I mean, Ohio State is in on just a who's who of national players right now. And but this was a good one because it kind of broke Michigan's heart once again, and it was a perfect way to me to kind of roll into this podcast with Michigan losing one and Ohio State on the verge of getting one.
Yeah, I like where Ohio State's at, and I think that Michigan's had this little mini run of commitments, but it's none of the guys that I would like die to get. I mean, they got some kids that visited Ohio State that I don't think Ohio State was terribly interested in, and I frankly think that we got better players anyways. Like I would take Jake Cook over Caden Strayhorn any day of the week and 10 times on Saturday. I think he's meaner. I think he's tougher. I think he's better. The only difference is that Jake didn't go to IMG, so he doesn't get the hype. I think that a lot of these guys, the defensive end that we got yesterday, Zion, is absolutely fantastic. And, we're in the catbird seat. I talked to a great source on David Sanders Jr. today. And I mean, it was like, if we don't win this one, I don't know what else we possibly could have done. And that includes Justin Fry, Ryan Day, NIL, the brotherhood, the family atmosphere, the kids. I mean, this is like, I don't know what else you can do. I mean, to win this one. So they feel really confident about that kid. So we'll see. Again, I know that Tennessee is going to be the biggest force. Georgia's out of it. Clemson, I think, is dead too. So it's kind of down to the final two. But I talked to one of the best sources in the whole David Sanders deal, and they feel really confident about it. And I was like, all right. I mean, you're in the mix all weekend, and the family. I mean, he's a different cat because he's got his family's completely involved, and some of these kids you got to figure out the family dynamic. Some of them it's mom, some of it it's mom and dad, some of it it's aunt, grandpa, whatever. But David's got a really deep family. They're really tight. He's a sharp kid. So he's the kind of kid that you would die to get at Ohio State because he's got all the attributes. But I love that we're cleaning up in the trenches. I feel like there's palpable momentum. Jake Cook, Max Roy, Zion Grady. If we get Autry, who would be an incredible flip to pair with Max Roy, that'd be a great duo in the interior. That's two top 10 defensive tackles. So, you don't do that very often at Ohio State just because of the geography. But Nevada, how are you feeling so far? I mean, again, we still got a chip in a chair with DeCorian Moore. I mean, we have legit shots at DeCorian Moore and David Sanders Jr. We talked about that yesterday. I think that they're maybe the two best players in the entire country. And Ohio State is right in the thick of both of those. But how are you feeling right now about this class? He is on mute. Get my dude back out here. He's coming back. I apologize for that. But I think with DeCorian, I'm going to toss this film on again here in a second. He's the guy that, he's a JJ. If you get JJ, DK Moore, Chris Henry back to back, I think that's the best trio, in succession that we've ever had. Like if you go JJ, DeCorian Moore, Chris Henry Jr., that's literally landing the number one receiver and maybe even the number one player in the country 3 straight years, which I think would be absolutely insane. Nevada, I was asking, how do you feel about this class? We're starting to get some of these linemen now, some of these interior linemen. I think it's, we get DK Moore and David Sanders Jr. I mean, look out. What are your thoughts?
Well, it just keeps getting better. I mean, I mentioned, kind of briefly, but Riley Pettijohn, the linebacker from Texas, I got a really good report on him and his relationship with Ohio State today. And that was a guy that I pretty much written off. And you look at the guys that were in there, like I said, they're all national guy, high 4-star, borderline 5-star, 5-star guys. And the class is already incredible. So the fact that we've got guys that I think that are heavy leans to Ohio State, guys that are trending to Ohio State, and then guys that we're still very much in the game with, like Autry, like Pettijohn. I mean, it's wild. I mean, it's wild. It's wild to think about how good this class can be. And when you look at, again, by the numbers, you look at it, there's really no class that even compares. I went back about 15 years on the classes, and there's really not a class that even compares. If we get even half of the guys that I think we're going to get coming down the stretch, this class will blow it away, be the best class in Ohio State history, and be very possibly the highest rated class in college football history, which is which is crazy. And so I think the only thing that would hold it back is it's not going to be a 30-person class or a 32-person class or whatever it is. But yeah, man, it is a deep and talented class. But Ohio State's not letting off the gas. This is not one that we're going to limp in at the finish line. They're putting down the pedal to the metal. They're working the NIL thing. And I think the story of Ohio State is we're going to pay you enough money in NIL that'll be competitive with anybody else out there, and you'll get developed, and you'll have a better chance. You'll have a statistically better chance at NFL riches than you would go in any other direction. On top of a great academic experience, a perfect APR up there with Harvard. The David Sanders thing, they're talking about medical school because apparently, Sanders is talking about medical school after, life after football. So, when you can talk about those things with a straight face, you're not just a football factory. You're checking a lot of boxes for parents, for mentors, for coaches, and for kids that really care about, the full total experience, the holistic experience of playing college football. And Ohio State's firing on all cylinders right now.
It's interesting. Yeah, the medical school thing was interesting. And like the thing that's, when I look back at it, obviously, Craig Krenzel was molecular genetics or something, or molecular biology or whatever he was. And, he sells insurance now, which is a great profession. I'm not going to lie. But I'm just saying, it's like sometimes these guys, they want to do things like doctors. It's funny. There are a bunch of walk-ons I played with that are doctors now. Simon Frazier, who is a defensive end senior year captain in 04, he's a doctor now. Now, he's not going to operate on me ever, but I'm just saying, like, there are some guys that actually take that tract. And Simon he came back after he was out of the NFL and went to med school. So it is, it's doable. Again, if the thing that I've said ad nauseum, and you guys are on our podcast. You guys watch our podcast because you clearly are the smartest Ohio State fans on earth. So you guys like to know what's really going on. But with Monica Daniels, who's Paris Johnson's mother, Monica Johnson, when they're getting recruited, she, and I've said it on the show 1,000 times, she's the smartest parent I've ever been around because she raised Paris. She had a plan for Paris. Obviously, Paris genetically gifted from God, like ridiculous genetics, but the way the kid was raised and the plan that she had, wants him to graduate in 3 years. So again, graduating in 3 years, it sounds really hard, but it really isn't hard because, if you go to school every summer and you graduate early from high school, I mean, it's very doable. Because basically, it's almost like you're there 4 years after your third year junior year because you get their winter semester. So basically you're one semester behind, but you catch up because you go to summer school. Like when you're an Ohio State Buckeye and you're a football player, you don't get to go home and hang out at the pool during the summer. I mean, you're in summer school all summer. So, and she was real strict with Paris. She said, don't drop any classes. Don't, because kids, they get lazy. They take, 12 hours in the spring so they can go hang out on the oval and lay out on a beach towel and stuff. But Paris was going full boat the whole time. And it's a decent workload. But looking back, like, it wouldn't kill you. Like, I mean, I had to slow down because, I redshirted. So, and I didn't graduate early. So, my last quarter at Ohio State, because they didn't have semesters yet, it was like I took 12 hours to graduate. So, I mean, I could have graduated quicker, but when you redshirt, you got to kind of drag it on a little bit. Paris was gone after 3 years. I was gone after 5. But then before he went into the NFL draft, she went to Gene Smith and she went to Ryan Day and she went to John Bruno, who's the head of academics in the school, and said, I want my son to be admitted into the grad program. He wants to be, I don't know if he went in the athletic director's track or whatever he wants to be when he's done. And so they went through the paperwork. She's like, I want it in writing and I want you guys to pay for it. Because again, if Paris would have stayed for year 4 and year 5, then all of a sudden, he's going to grad school and he's getting his graduate degree paid for. And she's like, well, my son is going to go to the NFL and you guys are going to use him for the next 20 years as the poster child for what a first round pick looks like. And hey, you can graduate in 3 years like Paris. And she's like, and I'm going to help you guys, get these really good tackles, these really good players, and I'm going to talk to the moms and say this is the way you do it. Because again, not every mom and not every family is anywhere. I mean, none of them are as smart as Monica was, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of them have no clue about the process, and they're just thinking who's going to give me the biggest chunk of NIL money. Because let's be real, like a lot of the families are destitute. So I mean, they're like, you throw a little bit of money at them, and they forget about all of the ancillary benefits to being an Ohio State Buckeye and how it can set you up like for life. And again, I know that sounds like a really dumb cliche. Oh yes, you go here and the Buckeye Nation will take care of you. I mean, you got to work it now. Like, I mean, they don't just come out and fawn over you. You got to actually like earn it. But a kid like Paris, I mean, dude, when he's out of the league in 15 years, he'll be 35 years old, retired, probably made $150 million. And then he could go get his graduate degree. Then he can go figure out what Paris Johnson Enterprises he's going to be running. So, but that's something that's always in his back pocket, that he knows that Ohio State agreed to pay for his school, and he is already enrolled in grad school with a deferral because he's in the NFL. And they got all that done, And again, it's real easy to do that when you're a junior All-American. Don't do it when you're out of the program. Do it when you're in the program, especially when they need your help in recruiting. Because again, not all parents are created equal in recruiting, and there's some parents that are assets and there's some that are liabilities. And again, some of the liabilities, like, when you get the parents that are upset about the kids playing time, or they're portaling out, or they didn't have a good experience, those are your liabilities. But when you have ones that are like, have had these supernaturally excellent experiences, like Paris Johnson and his mother, and Mike Daniels, her husband, that's a different world. So that's what David Sanders Jr. potentially could be. Like, if I'm David Sanders' parents, if I'm the folks and I'm him, and I hear what Monica lays out, and I got Ryan Day sitting there, and I got Justin Fry sitting there, and I got Gene Smith and Ross Bjork, and God, Ted Carter. I don't even know who else was in there, but it's just like, I'm listening to that and I'm like, this is what I want. Because there's no way that Tennessee could match that presentation and that layout. And again, if Ohio State, which I know they did it, they pulled out all the stops for this kid. I don't know how you lose them. And on top of the fact that they're offering them, a package that would choke an elephant in terms of an NIL deal. So, again, I feel really good about this kid. I don't know what else we can do, but I feel really good about getting this kid. Nevada, any thoughts on that? And we can get into some of these super chats.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tennessee's meeting that they had, like you said, you've given off the list of the luminaries that we had at Ohio State. At Tennessee's, they had like Jed Clampett and Ellie Mae and Jethro Bodine and Granny. And so it's like,
I was gonna say Randy, the Jimmy Haslam, Peyton Manning. I mean, I think they're a lot more formidable, and they won the World Series last night. But I don't know. Like, Tennessee's, it's weird because you're like, why would they be in it other than if they just have a fortune, which they kind of do. So, but I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I don't know. Like Tennessee, they're weird that they've been so down for so long with the resources that they have. So I think that'll be fascinating. Any other thoughts as we start digging into some of these super chats?
yeah, well, I think Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee was really good when Fulmer had them kind of going, and
Oh
it's
God.
Tennessee's one of those teams that's they're kind of on the verge, but they're not. I mean, I think David Sanders. My biggest concern about Sanders was, is he just an SEC kid? Is he a kid that just wants to play football in the SEC? And I think he might have gone into this recruiting process thinking that he was, but as you say, when the parents are out, the parents are really involved. The Ohio State football presentation is really, really difficult to beat, and certainly challenging for a school like Tennessee. And I agree with you. I think we're holding aces right now. And could you get drawn out on, and could he go to Tennessee? Sure. I mean, anything can happen in recruiting in 2024. But Ohio State feels really good about this one, giving me a lot of confidence in it, and I feel like this is I feel like this one's going to come up the right way for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and like I said, can stupid things happen? Of course. We lived through Jordan Seaton last year, who went to Colorado, which is that's as dumb. I mean, he's played for Phil Loadholt, who was a really good tackle at Oklahoma and with the Minnesota Vikings, but he's never been an offensive line coach before. And I'm like, so that's the guy you're gonna trust to develop you into an NFL player, a guy that's never coached the line with Dion and that circus, and they're going to put him out there as a freshman left tackle. He's probably going to get torched. Again, like we watched the kid from the left tackle from Alabama last year, who there's no way we could survive if we didn't get that kid. And he's, he stunk last year for Bama. Now he might be better this year, getting a little bit better shape. And, Caden Proctor went from Alabama to Iowa, back to Alabama, which is bizarre in my world, but I don't know. Like I said, but somehow we're surviving. All right, let's get into some of these super chats. Again, if you guys have thoughts and questions, toss us a super chat. We'll get this thing rolling. Steven Luter, thanks for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Can you imagine a world where Ohio State is undefeated heading into the Cheater Up North game and rested starters? I can't need to approach it with a college football game, in my opinion. I can't imagine resting the starters. I really can't. I mean, especially like if it's like this year, as senior day, I'd rather die than miss the Michigan game. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I mean, when you're playing in that thing, because like you don't want to see them happy, especially when they've been happy the last 3 years. And you got a lot of these kids that came back specifically to beat Michigan. So if I could imagine Ryan Day on Sunday after beating whatever bum team we played before Michigan, walking to the podium saying, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna rest Jack Sawyer and Trey and JT and Denzel and Caleb Downs and Will." I mean, that would be the end of days. Because again, I think that football is football. I think football is inherently violent. I think it's inherently dangerous. I think that every time I walked off the field, I never took it for granted. I always say a prayer to God, thank you for letting me walk off this field, because I've seen guys get paralyzed in front of me in Ohio Stadium. Like Tyson Gentry, one of the nicest humans in this world, was paralyzed in front of me. And like, if that doesn't change your thought process when you go out on that field, I don't know what will. So, but that being said, I'd always tell my wife and my kids and my girlfriend, I'm like, dude, it's real in the field. Like, this isn't tennis. This isn't golf. There's real, injury threats out here. And you see guys get named out there, but hey, that's just God's will. If something happens to you and that's meant to be, then it's meant to be. I mean, I tore my knee up, I broke my leg, broke my ankle, but I'm fine. I survived. And I'd much rather be out there playing, because I will tell you the most miserable time in my entire life, other than when my dad died, was when I was injured in 2005. And, when you're injured at Ohio State, and I was starting right tackle, started the Texas game, was balling, I was having a really good season as a redshirt sophomore, third-year guy. And I got hurt versus Penn State, tore my knee up. I was out for 4.5 weeks and tore my MCL. And, you don't travel. They leave you behind. It's like you're like a disposable cup that they just throw in the trash can. And I was so miserable not being able to play that it's like, as much as I hated practice and hated feeling sore, I couldn't wait to feel sore again. I couldn't wait to be back on the field and balling, because the team, they went to Indiana without me. They went to Minnesota without me. That was the game where Lawrence Maroney ran for like 200 yards, and the receiver from Copley torched Ashton Yabodi. Oh my God, it was so bad. He had like 150 yards on Ashton. And I remember watching that, and I was like, I can't believe that Minnesota is shredding us right now. Obviously we won, but it was just, you feel terrible. And again, I've talked to kids about that. They get left home. And that's something that I think, when you're not on the travel squad, because you have to understand, there's 85 guys on scholarship, and there's usually like 30 or 40 walk-ons, guys that, they're not on scholarship. But only 70 guys travel. So, or they might have moved it to 75 or 80, but it's no more than 80 guys that make the travel squad. So there's a lot of guys that, when they're freshmen and they're redshirting, they have no idea that there's such thing as a travel squad, and they don't get to go to the road games, and they don't get to go to I mean, even at home, there's a travel squad of guys that stay in the Blackwell, in the team hotel, the night before. And by the way, I think that we actually moved out of the Blackwell this year, which is going to be fascinating. I think Ryan has moved them out of that hotel, so they're going to be a little bit further away from campus to focus better, I guess. That was a rumor I heard. But yeah, I don't know. Resting a starters for Michigan, like I don't even know what I would say, but I would go I'd be pretty ballistic. I'd be probably belligerent if all of a sudden they said, we're not going to play the starters versus Michigan, and we're just going to let them win. Because you don't get your gold pants then, and I've got 6 pairs, so they mean a lot to me. And I hate seeing them happy, and I would hate to be out there and seeing like my backup getting torched by they're starters. And then I'm sitting there and I'm just like, why would we ever do that? And then the other part is a lot of those kids that are backups, they haven't played all year, or they've only played in junk time. They haven't, been a part of game planning and that type of thing. So you're putting them in a terrible situation. It was kind of like when we played Enoch in the bowl game versus Missouri and we put Matt Jones at center. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my entire life, because you have two guys that had never played. Oh, Matt was a good player at guard, never played center in his life, didn't know the calls. And Enoch had never played, other than the Michigan game the year prior where he got pulled after the first quarter because he was so bad. He was terrified. So you put him out there against Missouri and he's terrified again. And our whole offense is stuck in the mud because we can't block anybody. So, again, I wouldn't want to put my backup out there. And again, I knew there were times I had to play through significant pain and injuries because I knew my backup wasn't ready to play. He wasn't good enough. And if we put him out there, it would destroy the entire offense. So, but that's my thought on it. Nevada, I'm sure you're going to be right next to me on this one. But Stephen Luter, again, great question. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the 5. Can you imagine a world where Ohio State is undefeated heading into the Cheaters Up North game and rest the starters? He can't. Need to approach it like a college football playoff game. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I think there's some nuance here, because I think that what you'll see is those going to be scenarios at some point, whether it be in the Michigan game, whether it be in the Big Ten championship game, not necessarily where your load management guys or keep holding guys back, but if a guy's hurt or kind of hurt, do you play him or do you hold him when you've got the playoff? And we've also talked about because you obviously what you're playing for is seeding. We've talked about how 1 through 4, obviously you get the bye, but man, if you slide into 5 may be the best spot in the whole thing. So I don't know. I know I don't think there'll be wholesale things where you're resting guys in the Michigan game, but I do think it's going to set up some scenarios in the future, the stuff that we just can't even comprehend. That'll be different, just because the 12-team playoff, the 4 rounds potentially, or at least 3 rounds, if you're a high seed of postseason, is unlike anything that we've seen before. So there's going to be things that are going to be different. Will this be one of them? Not exactly sure, but I think there'll be something like this that happens, and we'll go, wow, man, that's different for college football. But I'm excited to see it, just because we're going to see more great football games down the stretch. I've completely changed. I always say I reserve the right to change my mind. I've changed my mind on the expanded playoff. I actually like the expanded playoff. I do think 8 was a better number than 12, and I do think they're just chomping at the bit to go to 16 and then to 24. I mean, we all know where this is going, but in the meantime, it's going to be 12, and I think that plays well for Ohio State. And as an Ohio State fan, I'm all in. And the 05 Minnesota game, is that the game where Kudla pulled Maroney down like on a 4th and 1?
Yeah, he had the one arm tackle.
The one hand. The one arm tackle where he grabbed him and just yanked him down to the ground. That was one of the greatest unsung plays that I've ever seen. I still remember that play 19 years later. I still remember that play.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Mike Kudla might be the most underrated player in Ohio State history. I mean, he was all Big Ten, and I know, and he gets graded down because he did nothing in the NFL. He had a mini camp invite with the Steelers. He got cut after 2 weeks, and he's the guy that I was shocked that he didn't find any sort of role in the NFL. I played with guys that sucked, and they played in the NFL for multiple years, and I was like, those guys were vacations to go against compared to Mike. And Mike was strong. He ran a legit 4.5, like 4.58, and he benched, obviously like 600 pounds, and he was short, which again, that's not optimal, but it's optimal if you make it optimal. Like he was like Doomerville. Like Elvis Doomerville played and was a Pro Bowl defensive end, and he was whatever 5'11", and again, it's just a weird leverage point because tall guys aren't used to playing against guys that are that short. But when they're quick, and again, the thing about Mike is he was the strongest player on the team, like bar none. Like nobody could touch him in the strength category, and he played really hard. Like he never took a playoff. And again, that's the thing about a lot of defensive ends are lazy. They don't play hard. Coods his motor was 1,000,000%. That's why, like in 05, our team we were so good, and that's why it sucks so bad that we didn't win a national title, because like Coods was like the MVP of the Fiesta Bowl. He had 3 sacks versus Ryan Harris, who was a 3rd round pick, I think, from Notre Dame. He destroyed him. Sacked Brady Quinn 3 times, and it was truly bizarre that he never did anything in the league, and it sucks that he's gone, honestly, because he's a good dude, and it's weird when you see some of your young contemporaries that you're teammates with are have passed away, but Kuz was a great player. Oh my god. Jermaine Goins, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. If Ryan Day beats Michigan in the regular season but loses to them in the playoffs, is he still on the hot seat? Wow. See, I literally love you guys because you guys come up with some of the smartest questions, things that it just makes me and Nevada think of this is a different layer that I've never really thought about. So again, kudos to you guys as always for bringing these great questions. Yeah, I think he is. Again, let's just be brutally honest here. If Ryan doesn't win a national championship this season, it ain't gonna be good. I'm just telling you, this is a team you got to cash in. I know that there's moral victories and golly gee shucks maybe next year, but with the amount of money we spent on this team and how talented this team is, and again, and then you look around the college football, there isn't a 2019 LSU team or 2001 Hurricanes team, or there's just some juggernaut out there that we're like, oh my God, how are we ever going to beat those guys? Even Georgia is down. Let's be serious. They're not as good as they were, in 2021 when they had the best defense in college history, in my opinion. So even Georgia, I think, is down. They've got a great quarterback, but I don't think the rest of the team is what they've been in the past. But yeah, I mean, dude, if you lose to Michigan at any point, I don't care if you play them 3 times, it's not going to be good. Now if you win 2, if you beat them, in the regular season, beat them in the Big Ten title, and then you lose them in the playoffs, I don't know. That's some mental aerobics for me to figure that one out. But he's going to win a national championship this year. I mean, you got to cash it in. And again, that's people say it's hard here because it's national title or bust, but I'm not like that every year. I'm like that a lot of years at Ohio State just because I think that we're so grossly over talented compared to everyone we play. I mean, we're favored in every game we play at Ohio State. This kind of is what it is. But this year, it's even worse because the talent difference is so dramatic between everybody we play, except Oregon. Oregon is close, but I'd still take our talent any day of the week over Oregon's. But yeah, I think that he would be on the hot seat if he lost to Michigan in the playoffs. And I can't imagine what Columbus would be like. It'd be interesting. Nevada, your thoughts, Jermaine? And again, great question. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the 5. Friday beats Michigan in the regular season, but loses to them in the playoffs. Is he still on the hot seat? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, look, Michigan's not going to be great this year, guys. I'm just telling you right now. I know people have post-traumatic stress disorder about they think that Michigan magically is going to come rise up and they're the Baba Yaga living in the basement and jumping when you're sleeping and they're not going to be very good this year. They're just not. So having said that, I don't think it's national championship or bust for Ryan. I think it's national championship game or bust. I think if you made the national championship game and you lose in the game, I think that people would. I'm not saying people would be happy about it. I'm not saying people be but I think that would be okay. I think anything short of that is going to be a real disappointment, and no matter who you lose to, and obviously, if you lost to Michigan along the way before the national championship game, and that was what knocked you out. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be extraordinarily hot. Although that scenario is so Michigan's going to really, really struggle to score points this year. They've got Lydell Ross at running back. They've got the worst quarterback in the Big Ten, and they've got 5 brand new offensive linemen. So I don't know how they're going to score. So that's the defense is going to be fine. They've got a brand new coach who's having a brand new head coach who's never done it before. So nothing about this screams, wow, this is going to be a great year for Michigan. So I think they're going to be like Iowa bad on offense. That's how bad I think they're going to be.
I mean, they got a quarterback that can't throw. He can run. I mean, he ran all over us last year. But I'm telling you, replacing 5 offensive linemen at once is a terrifying proposition. I'm just telling you. And they've got one guy you got to stop, the tight end, who's really good. But if you don't have, again, J.J. McCarthy was a first-round pick. Even if he stinks, he's still in the first round. And they had five good linemen, and Jim Harbaugh is an offensive line savant, and he's the guy that puts a lot of pressure on the O line. He's the guy that loves the O line. He's the guy that thinks that the whole team runs around the O line. So we'll see if Sean Moore can keep that up. Again, Sean Moore was a guy that it shocked me when they hired him as the line coach, but I think that when you have an excellent strength coach like they had who went to the LA Chargers, and you have Jim Harbaugh, it's kind of like having Urban Meyer and Mickey Marotti as your strength coaches. Because then that third part, the line coach, I just think it's much easier when you have Urban Meyer's scheme on offense, which is excellent, and then you have Mickey Marotti beating the tar out of those guys, making them tough as nails, making them lean, monstrously strong. It makes the rest of the stuff really easy. Like, I mean, I lived it. I was like, when we all of a sudden got Mickey Marotti in there, we got like a real strength coach in the building who made those guys tough. And then we had Urban who made those guys, hey, you guys are working 6 days a week. You guys are fat, out of shape, sloppy. So you guys have extra cardio every single day until you guys get less fat and sloppy. And we're going to weigh you guys every day. So that was like a whole culture shift mindset. And again, I loved it because, again, there's nothing that sucks more than when you're, and again, I was just a GA. I had no say in anything. I was basically like a secretary. But, when Urban gave me the green light, he's like, you need to go coach and get these guys going. And I was like, all right, let's ride. So let's go. Because, again, I am not about to have Urban Meyer, destroying me every day in meetings because our O-line sucks. So if I got to, put those guys in a torture chamber every day to have them learn the playbook and work the fundamentals and the footwork and get in shape and whatever, I'm doing it because I'm not going to be on the bad side of Urban. And honestly, I loved that because magically we got really good. Why? Because we worked like insanely hard, and it's gratifying when you see these guys turn into millionaires because the work you did. It's the greatest feeling in the world when you're a young coach, when you work with guys like Jack Muhort and Lindsley and Norwell and Taylor Decker, and they all become like really rich and they do really good and they're great people and great kids. And it was like, I was like, thank God. And honestly, we were really good on the O-line in 12 and we were even better in 13 because these guys were all back, but it was awesome. Um, David Dickerhoof, thank you for the 5. Heard David's girlfriend already goes to Tennessee. Need to get her to OSU. I have not heard that. That would not surprise me because I didn't understand the whole pull from Tennessee, but you know, hearts are made to be broken, is what I'll say. And again, when you go from the little pond of wherever you go to high school to the big pond of Tennessee or Ohio State, like whatever that you had from small town USA, you go to the big city, man. I mean, those girls, they're gone in a poof. And I've seen that. I saw that with, some of our guys. They would bring their girlfriends on their official visits. And I'd look at them and I'd be like, you got about maybe 5 days. And then that thing's going to be Splitsville. And, the one girl was like, oh, well, Taylor's going to go to the main, or it's going to go to the main campus. And then this kid, she's like, I'm going to go to the small campus, the Worcester campus, or the Marion campus. Is like, yeah, that ain't gonna last. I promise you. But again, I don't know. Like, I mean, any kid that chooses a place based upon where his like high school girlfriend is, I question his aptitude honestly because like all that should matter is what place is going to get you most ready to play in the National Football League, and that's Ohio State clearly. If you look at what our tackles are doing. And I just wish Dewan was up for an extension. He still has another 2 years before they're going to re-up with him. But, when they see what Dewan and Paris get on their next deal, it's going to be absolutely crazy. But I don't know. I have not heard that. But I don't know. I mean, if a kid picks based on the girlfriend, then I have no words. Nevada, your thoughts. David Dickerhoof, again, I appreciate you, my friend. Stark County brother. Heard David's girlfriend already goes to Tennessee. Need to get her to OSU. And I'm sure they could do that. I mean, people can transfer, but like I said, I don't know. I mean, when you're going to college, man, you don't need to take sand to the beach, but this is my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, and I mean, again, I'm not saying that's not true. That could very well be true, but um, yeah, to me, these are kind of like litmus tests for kids. Like you said, if a kid chooses Tennessee because his girlfriend goes there, then um, I'm okay with it at that point, because you'd have to really, yeah, you have to really question his commitment to excellence, as Vince Lombardi would say. But no, I haven't heard that that's going to be an issue at all. And as you said, if they wanted to get her to Columbus, if she wanted to come to Columbus, if it was that important, Ohio State can do anything they want. I mean, it's Ohio State, so. Um, Look, they managed to get you through school and then get you an MBA. So if they can do that, man, they can. Anything is possible. So keep hope alive there, David.
Hey, if they can make us like on par with perfect APR with Harvard, I mean, come on. I'm like some of these kids. I'm like, okay. They got David Copperfield as our academic advisor, I guess. God. But hey, it looks great on the little board, the little stand when they walk in. They put
It's
this little thing that
it's.
says,
I mean, Kirk, honestly, I know you're a skeptical hippo about that, but that is amazing. I don't care how they did it. I don't care how they did it. It's amazing that they did it. Don't you agree?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, Bernie
I mean,
Madoff was
perfect.
Bernie Madoff was fabulously wealthy too. I don't care how he did it, but he did it. He had a nice big penthouse in New York and everything.
He was fabulously wealthy before he started cheating, man. That's the thing. I mean,
know.
Bernie didn't need to do it. He wanted the adoration, man. That was.
I'm happy they did it. Again, I think it's great. I think it's a great statistic to sell in recruiting. But
Oh yeah, you're listen to that voice, man. You are so salty about that. You are so salty about that. It's like, oh yeah, I'm happy for them. I'm really really happy for them.
Did you ever read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair?
Yeah, I did.
Did you ever read that? You did. So you had like the meat factories and like the
in
old days.
Chicago.
They show you how the sausage is made.
Yes.
It's like,
you are so salty, man. You're so bitter.
I'm not salty at all. I've been in the machine, so I know how the machine works. Like I'm not like, I'm not blindly fawning. It's like, oh please give me my soup porridge.
Those guys are doing better than I am.
Oh my God! I hope they get MBAs from Fisher. Then they'll be doing better than I am. But God bless.
Man.
I just laugh because I'm just like, I wonder what we're gonna do next. They're probably gonna say that we're gonna get in the Ivy League after that. That'll be good.
That'd be awesome.
We'll be playing the Ivy League football. Rohan Vangel, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you, my friend. How late can we get a punter? Well, we got Nick McLarty, the kid from Melbourne, Australia, who hit the ball like 90 yards in his one video. I don't know if we're in the market for another one. I mean, I don't know how many punters we need. But the portal's closed, so I don't know who else could possibly be moving or transferring at this hour, but I don't know. I think we're set. I mean, with Nick McLarty and the other kid. I still don't understand why Jesse Merkel left, but I guess he just really wanted to go to Vanderbilt and punt like 19 times a game on that bad offense. But yeah, so that's I think that's where we're at. Nevada, any thoughts? How late can we get a punter? I don't think we can really get anybody now, because I mean the portal's closed, and I mean God, we start camp in a month, so I don't think that there's much time left to really accentuate any parts of the roster. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, they like McLarty. I mean, you're talking about a 6'7" punter, the guy that can just hammer the ball. They're pretty happy with their punting situation right now, so I don't think they're going to be looking for anything. As you said, to look this late, you'd almost have to go international. You'd have to. I mean, all the punters. It's kind of like all the shortstops come from Dominican Republic and Venezuela, or all the punters come from Australia. So if you wanted a punter and you weren't happy with your punting situation, you'd make a call down there, down under, and see if they've got some of those men at work guys that are going to come out there and punt for you, because they crank out the punters like cordwood down there. It's unbelievable how they've kind of dominated punting right now. But you'd have to go international, because I don't think you could find anybody domestically this late in the game.
Nevada, why does Australia dominate punting now?
Australian rules football. Australia, they're growing up playing that Australian rules football, which is basically running and punting. It's basically the whole game is like punting. So it's kind of it's a natural kind of I mean that's the kind of the national sport of Australia. And they grow up playing it that way. They develop those really strong kicking legs. It's a really natural motion that lends itself well to punting in football, and so they just dominate. It's kind of like I said, it's like Dominican Republic, or
Yep.
why are they so good in baseball? I mean, the country, I don't know, the country's like the size of Columbus, and it puts out like 80% of the Major League Baseball players because they're all in on baseball.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Australia's all in on punting. That's what they do. They punt. Lots of punting.
Well, that's the funny thing is, we know who we're going to talk about, but we've got a friend who's a really, really, really successful baseball agent. He had Rafael Furcal and a bunch of like the biggest, Dominicans that have ever played, and like down there, like that's your way. That's your only way out. There's no football. Soccer is minuscule. And I mean, those kids, like, that's all they do all day. There's no Roblox. There's no Xbox Live. It's like go out in the streets, make a glove out of, whatever you can find, cut off your sister's doll head and use it as baseball and hit it with a stick. And that's what those guys do. And then those guys, they get to the bigs and all of a sudden, or they get to, some of these training facilities when they're, 13, 14 years old and they're hosted by Major League Baseball teams. All of a sudden they have real equipment, real stuff. And it's like, wow, this is so easy. Um, like Pedro Martinez, who I think is the best pitcher that's ever lived. Like he said he used to rip the heads off the dolls, and those are the baseballs out in the street. They take like the big doll heads and throw them, and like Mariano Rivera, who's from Panama, had like a glove that he made out of like cardboard, and so I mean it's just different down there because that's their national thing. It's kind of like South Florida with football. Like a lot of these kids, from South Florida Express. I mean, that is their way out is playing football. And so they start playing football when they're 5 years old and that's it. And they turn into just monsters and they're ultra competitive. And, there's just certain areas where that's where, kids really, they gravitate to it. It's a way of life. And it's not a hobby is what it is. Like for a lot of, kids like around, where I'm at, it's like, it's just a hobby, but down there it's life. Then I love the Dominican. I mean, there are some monstrous baseball players from down there. Pooh Bear 12, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you being an ultra member as well. I worked with Simon Fraser during one of my rotations in residency. Incredibly nice and humble, and a nightmare for the short surgical techs who needed multiple step stools to reach his table height. That is funny. Yeah, Simon was like 6'5". Probably 275 ish, big guy. He's a lot senior now, obviously doesn't play anymore. But we were next to each other locker wise. I was number 74, he's number 75. So we were, I literally was next to him for 03, 04. His last year was 04. Didn't get drafted, was with the Browns and the Falcons for a hot minute. Yeah, Simon, like I said, God bless him. His dad was an academic. I think his dad was a surgeon too. My sister, who is a genius, my sister's valedictorian of our high school, and she's 2 years younger than me. She literally tutored him in chemistry when he was done in the NFL, because Simon, was just like whatever. But my sister was like a literal genius in the sciences, so she tutored him, which is like one of those deals where my sister was hilarious because she worked at SASA, which is the Student Athlete Support Center, where the kids they all have to get tutored. So she tutored like Boom Heron, Dorian Bell, like I mean all of the luminaries, and it was like, oh my god, because my sister didn't put up with anything because she was like she knew me and those kids all knew me, and she'd tell me these stories and they were just hilarious. Some of the stuff these kids would say, nothing disrespectful, but just dumb. And I was just like, oh my god, oh where are we at? What is life? Yeah, she was right in the mix of it, and she's out of it now, thank God. Nevada, Pooh Beard worked with Simon Fraser. Do you have any Simon Fraser memories?
I'm trying to think of specific things with him, but I just thought he was a really good player. I thought he was a productive guy. Can remember his recruitment really well, and he was the guy that we were really excited to get when we got him. And no, I just look, everybody at Ohio State isn't going to be a star, but I remember him being a real productive guy. Came in and made some plays for Ohio State, and um, I think that's all you can ask for from guys. Not everybody can be an All-American. Not everybody can have a tree in the grove, but everybody can contribute a little bit, and he contributed more than a little bit. That's for sure.
Well, Simon was interesting because he in '03, which was his junior year. The first game of the season, we played Washington. It was a night game. It was the game where Maurice Claret was standing on the bench and ESPN Game Day, and it was a circus. And Simon made his first career start at defensive end, and this was a year after Kenny Peterson had graduated. Obviously, had a great game against the Hurricanes and had gotten drafted by the Broncos. And so you've got Simon, who's a good defensive end, but then you've got Will Smith and Darian Scott, who are both excellent defensive ends, who both didn't declare for the draft, decided to come back for the seniors. So Darian, who is one of my favorite players of all time, Darian Scott, who I used to block on scout team. D-man is what we called him. He's a monster. I mean, he was a monster. He took, he did like the Thayer Munford move and moved from defensive end, his natural spot, to 3 technique, defensive tackle. So Simon could get in the lineup. So that first game, I think that everyone in Washington was scared to death of D-man and Tim Anderson and Will. So they like one up Simon the whole game. Simon had like 2.5 sacks in the first game of the year and was the national player of the year after that game. And I was like, whoa, he's about to have like a huge year. And it was a nationally televised game, night game. We demolished Washington. They had Cody Pickett, who was like a preseason Heisman quarterback type dude. I honestly don't think Simon had another sack for the rest of the year. He might have had one more, but I was like, man, Simon might have 15 sacks and be off the league, and I think he had 2 for the year. So it was kind of interesting that National Player of the Week, like your first career start, is something that's like super super impressive. Steve Luter, again, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. And this is a great question, Steven. Do you think Urban Meyer's emotional style led to letdown losses to Purdue and Iowa? Coach Day has lost huge games, but no shocking, quote, shocking ones like those. Nevada, I'm going to let you take this one first because I've been doing a lot of talking. What are your thoughts on that? 'Cause I think that's a fantastic question.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. It's interesting thought. I think that Myers' losses, because there were so few, I think there was 9 or whatever it was, they were all so notable, but they were really explainable. I mean, the Iowa game was after the Penn State game, which was a game you and I attended together, which might have been, we might have seen the greatest quarterback performance in the history of the stadium that day from JT Barrett. Certainly the greatest second half. I don't think he had an incomplete pass for 15 in a row in the fourth quarter or some ridiculous thing like that 39-38 game. The players crying on the field afterwards, and then they have to go to at Iowa the next week. So, I don't know if so much of it was a Meyer emotional thing or just there was a couple of times where they had big games, lined them up, then had to go on the road the next week and kind of got caught short. And like the Purdue game, Purdue just played a perfect game. I mean, Purdue sometimes everything goes right. Everything you're throwing, it's like you're playing basketball and everything you throw goes in. So I don't think it's so much that I think that Ryan has been blessed because I think the Big Ten's down a bit since when Meyer was playing it. I think it's pretty much the big 2 and everybody else. I think some of those other teams were capable of rising up and giving Ohio State a game. I think now the talent gap is so vast between Ohio State and all the other teams in the Big Ten, with the exception of Michigan, that it's almost unfair. I mean, like teams like Michigan State. Michigan State, when Meyer was coaching, they were formidable. They could rise. Now they're a joke, and that wasn't always the way it is. So I don't know. It is an interesting point, though, but I personally don't describe it. I think it was more just kind of bad circumstances of having to play letdown games in difficult places the following week, and unfortunately, Ohio State came up short in some of those games.
Well, I think that when you look at some of those games that are completely inexplicable, like a team like Purdue, where I'd imagine we were probably like at least 21-point favorites versus Purdue that night, and we walk into it, and again, like Purdue, like as a program, they suck. I mean, they're just kind of bottom tier. So the thing you have to guard against, though, is when you played Ohio State, and again, this will be cliche bingo, what I'm going to say, but it's you are the Super Bowl for every other team. You are the, and again, Ohio State doesn't go to Purdue thinking that that's their Super Bowl. Purdue, when Ohio State's coming to town, that's the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, especially with Urban Meyer. Like with Urban Meyer coming to town, it was the Taylor Swift concert. I mean, they fill up the stadium. That's the game that they have all the big donors come see the big bad Buckeyes. So you get the team's best shot, and if a team isn't mentally right or coordinated, on the right trajectory, then I mean, you can get smashed. And again, this is coming from a guy I lost at Purdue in '04, lost at Iowa in '04, and again, we went out to Iowa, my first career start, and we lost 31-7, annihilated. I mean, it was an absolute um, demolishing, and I don't think we were ready for Kinnick. And again, that was something I thought going into that game. Again, because you always talk about emotional letdown, but that Penn State game was the most emotional game that I think most people had ever seen because of the comeback, because of that was the best Penn State team I think since 1994 when they won the national championship with Saquon, McSorley, they had NFL guys on all over the field, both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive lines, skill guys all over the place, and namely led by Saquon, who Saquon's the best player they've had in 20 years, easily. But none of that staff had ever been to Kinnick. So they go out there in 17. They'd been there since 2012, but with the way that the schedule is and how wonky it was, none of Ohio State staff, including Urban might have gone as a GA in the 80s, but he hadn't been there in a while. And none of the players had ever been to Kinnick. So I don't think they knew what they were getting into going out to Kinnick. And Kinnick, in Iowa is a sneaky team because sometimes they've got really good players and they just happen to have Noah Fant and Hawkinson, or two first round tight ends. And to me, Hawkinson's probably the second or third best tight end in the league behind Kelsey and whoever. I mean, he's probably second in my mind, maybe Kittle. But those guys were loaded for bear. And again, you start off noon, and it was a game that it kind of reminded me of the Clemson game where we lost 31-0, where it was kind of like an avalanche where a couple, you don't get you have an early turn. We had that pick six right off the bat, which kills you. That was kind of like the Michigan game last year where we threw that pick six right early in the game when it was a stalemate, and we throw the pick six, and that kind of opens up the dam a little bit. But I remember, I'll never forget that game because it was on my birthday, and I was out in Vegas, and I was with my family, and I was at this pool, and the girls that were working at the pool, they were like, well, we're going to play a game. Every time Iowa scores a touchdown, you have to jump in the pool. And I was like, oh, they're not going to score on us. We just beat Penn State. We're great. Iowa stinks, whatever. And they dropped like 55 points, and I had to keep jumping in this cold pool in November in Vegas. And I was just like, is this real? But honestly, I was out there and I was having so much fun. I didn't care about the game, but I just thought that Kinnick was tough. And, again, it's kind of like Camp Randall. It's kind of like Penn State. Again, like when people are stupid that have never played football, they've never coached football, they don't realize, like, when there's an elite road, a road stadium that you go into, it's hard to win there. Even if the team isn't great, it still can kind of pull, when Ohio State has a fantastic team and say Wisconsin is whatever, or Iowa's whatever, it can pull it a little bit closer. Now, Purdue is not that. Again, the Purdue one, way more inexplicable just because of the lack of talent. But no, I think that there was probably some points of breakage with Urban because he was so hard on everybody that I think mentally sometimes these guys just collapse because they're under so much pressure all the time. But I also just think that, it was a lack of leadership that those guys weren't up for the games, and again, and that happens sometimes. Again, it was like Urban lost that crazy game to Ole Miss in 2008, and that 2008 Florida team might be one of the 5 best teams in the history of college football, but they lost to Ole Miss at home, and they didn't play well. And so why? I don't know. No, they rallied and won a national title, so it kind of just let Tebow give his little speech and whatever. But I don't know. Like those are 2 games that are completely inexplicable to me. I mean, it's kind of like the Florida game. People ask me what happened. I was like, well, we just got smashed. I mean, we went against a team that was actually Urban's team that just beat us. So I don't really know. I mean, as much as I've diagnosed that with Troy Smith and Jim Tressel, like offline in phone conversations, like it's just one of those ones where that's sometimes just life in football. It's life in the big city. Like sometimes you're aces and sometimes you're bust, and that's kind of what it is. But that's, again, another great question because, I've gotten so many questions about Iowa and Purdue. And the thing I hate about those games is people, like every time we play Iowa and every time we play Purdue, they're going to show those highlights for like the next 10 years. Oh, the one time Iowa beat us in 2017 and the one time Purdue beat us in 2018. And the thing that sucks even more is those were two really good teams that would have been playoff teams in the new format, but we just missed out on the playoffs because we had two really stupid losses. So, um, let me think.
Kirk, before you get to the next super chat, the accountable coaches legislation has passed the NCAA, so it is now official that they've changed that.
Is there no limit on that? We should talk about that.
I think there's no limit. I think for recruiting now, you can have to go to 11 or something like that, and they can move the guys around. But yeah, I do not believe there's a restriction on the number of coaches that can be involved in on-field instruction right now. So clearly, this is something that's going to greatly enhance things for the haves and the people that can afford, the additional analysts, quality control guys, whatever you want to call them. And Ohio State certainly falls into that category. And in a year where you've got 5 quarterbacks in the quarterback room and a new quarterback in Will Howard, something like it's perfect timing because literally you can give everybody their individual guy that can work with them every day. And I think the team will be about as prepared as you could humanly possibly hope for.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be very interesting because I think this is gonna kill the MAC schools. This is gonna kill the smaller schools. Just because I think I'm looking to see. Okay, here we go. NCAA Division One. So I found. I'm gonna toss this up on the screen real quick. And Division One Council passes unlimited college football coaching staff size for the 2024 season. I mean, this is huge. This is a huge deal. And again, we got Tim Drevno, we got Billy Fessler. Billy Fessler is the quarterbacks coach at UCLA. Drevno is the O-line coach at UCLA. You're going to see these analysts and quality control coaches now coaching. And again, I think that there's it says all staff members are allowed to provide technical and tactical instruction to athletes during practice and games. I mean, this is a huge change because now, when you look at like what a MAC, say a MAC coach makes 150 grand, 175 grand, Ohio State pays that to analysts now. So, all of a sudden, like you might lose your line coach or your quarterbacks coach or whatever who's in the MAC or is in a lesser level of football because now they can come up here and coach. Because it's one thing to come to Ohio State and be a QC. It's another thing to become accountable coach. So this is a huge deal. I think it's interesting that, and again, let's be real. Like there are some schools that that did cheat and they didn't have compliance departments, so they would have quality control coaches out coaching the tight ends or coaching positions and acting like regular coaches because they didn't have compliance. At Ohio State, they would narc on us in a heartbeat if we tried to do anything because that's just how we were. We'd love to tell on ourselves for stupid things like that. But yeah, it says the decision eliminates the NCAA's 11 accountable coaches policy, allowing just 10 assistants and the head coach to provide on-field instruction. And that also, there's also 4 GAs, so it's really 15. The rules become antiquated as top programs now employ a variety of analysts, quality control coaches, recruiting coordinators, player personnel directors, general managers, and stuff. So it's like, this means like a player personnel guy could go out and coach, which is hilarious. That'd be funny as can be. But I think like the offensive line will be a huge benefit. I think having Tim Drevno on stuff is huge. But this is like it says on 3 says sources say that quarterback, middle linebacker, and special teams are key positions to watch where programs will look to leverage the role. And again, so if you're Ohio State and you're worried about Larry Johnson because he's 72 years old or whatever it is, like you could hire Jason Taylor to be like the defensive end / pass rush coach, pay him $500,000 or $700,000 or whatever. And then you have like your built-in succession planning, which again, this is huge because like quality control coaches no longer exist. Now they're real coaches. So this is really fascinating. I think something that's kind of an undercurrent thing that people don't talk about enough is that, I think there's some guys that are quality control coaches that have kind of been on the staffs that might, I don't want to say they'll lose their jobs, but I mean, this really opens up the pool of candidates that would come work at Ohio State as an analyst, because now that you can actually coach, because the one thing that you can't do, that you couldn't do previously, was actually coach. Like, you couldn't be on the field. Like Joe Philbin was an analyst for us last year, wasn't allowed to wear a headset. Devin Jordan is a quality control coach. He's not allowed to wear a headset. Now these guys can all wear headsets. These guys can all be coaching actively on the sideline legally. So that is huge for every program. But I'm telling you, this is going to kill the small schools. This will kill the 1AA schools. This will kill the MAC schools. And it'll be interesting to see how much the salary budgets swell, because now you can hire like 2 real offensive line coaches, and you can have a wide receivers coach, an inside wide receivers coach. You can have, on the O line, you can have a tackles and tight ends coach, or a interior guard coach. There's a million different varieties you could do. So yeah, this is going to be really interesting, because, like I said, this is not good news for the small programs. It's great news for Ohio State, and that's all I really care about. But what are your thoughts on this, Nevada? I think this is going to be great.
I think it's seismic. I think that we're not really. Yeah, I think this is a big one. I think this one kind of snuck up, and we're kind of talking about it, but I think the implications of this are going to be pretty vast. Trying to dial in the exact right number, because there's a point of diminishing returns where you get the too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing. But I mean, for Ohio State to be able to, with as many players as they have on the sideline, as many different guys that need kind of instruction, it's going to be wild. I mean, it's really going to be wild. No reason to dress up Connor Stallions like a coach for CMU. He can now be a coach for Central Michigan. He's already got the outfit, so he can do this.
Yeah, well, this is what's interesting. So in this article, and again, this is a good article by On3, it says, including head coaches, FCS would have, so you're still going to have 11 off-campus recruiting coaches, so you got to designate that. Now, I don't know if you can change those. I don't know if you could say, hey, we're going to send the defensive ends coach out and Laurinaitis, whoever. So that'll be interesting. I think you could only have a max of 11 on the road, because that's where it'd be crazy scary, is if you could put like 30 coaches out on the road instead of 11. But this is the thing that I just said, and I didn't read this article. I literally just pulled it up. Industry sources believe that the unlimited coaching staffs could lead to a top group of 5 assistants, that's the smaller tier schools taking analyst or assistant roles with major programs, which is exactly what I said. I was like, this is terrible for small schools, for Akron, Kent, Youngstown State, because if they're good coaches there, now they can actually go to Ohio State or go to Purdue or go to wherever. And again, not everyone's gonna have the same budget. That's the thing. So I mean, it might functionally seem like guys are just gonna be leaping, but not every school is invested in spending as much as Ohio State is. But the future of the graduate assistants, that's interesting too, because now, like, you don't need graduate assistants anymore. The GA thing is completely antiquated, because you don't need like I didn't need to go to school. I had to go to school. If I wanted to coach, I had to be in grad school. So, in a perfect world, I would have never done grad school, done night class. I'm glad I did, because I love having an MBA. But I would have never done that and coached with Urban, because it was insane. My workload was insane. And I would rather just have been coaching, because you're trying to learn how to be a coach. You want to be a football coach. But yeah, it's like I said, so now it'll be interesting to see how this affects the youngest coaches, because the GA thing was it's a way for young guys to get their foot in the door. But now, if you can just hire all old, crusty veteran dudes, how do the young guys get in the door and kind of prove themselves? That'll be fascinating, because again, I think they'll still maybe have GAs, but they don't need GAs anymore. Like, GAs were pivotal people, but now they're very much marginalized. Like, when I was a GA, an O-line GA, when I worked there, I did a ton. I was basically like the second offensive line coach. But now you can hire like a real second offensive line coach. So now the GA is kind of down to whatever. So, like when Tim Drevno showed up and now he can coach, like, it makes Mike Salini, not irrelevant, but he's pushed down the totem pole pretty far, because you can only have so many coaches. Like, at some point it's diminishing returns. But this is a huge deal. And again, I think Ohio State, they hired Billy Fessler. They got Tim Drevno. I mean, those are guys that were position coaches at UCLA when Chip Kelly was there. So they've been preparing for this. Because again, I said that it was smart that Ryan did that because, if he's not happy with Justin Fry or Keenan Bailey or Brian Hartline gets a head coaching job, you have candidates in the building that potentially could, take those jobs. If he doesn't like Justin Fry and he likes how Tim Drevno is going, then great. And I think that's like kind of the double-edged sword is like if you're, if you've got two line coaches and you don't believe in one and the guy that you bring in is like the backup is you like what he's doing and the players like him, that could give you more ammunition to make a move. Or previously when you couldn't coach, that really wouldn't be feasible because you couldn't really see the guy getting his hands dirty, getting his hands on the kids and seeing what he can do with them. So yeah, this is a huge deal for college football. Any thoughts, Nevada? We're going to get into a few more of these super chats, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this opens up the possibility to bring back Barton, just bring you back as like a specialist, just for game day coaching. So you don't go there through the week. Now, just hear me out now,
God.
Okay? You just show up for like an hour before the game, and then during the game, you're like coaching, giving it the benefit of your wisdom during the game. Then afterwards, you leave about 30 minutes before the game so you get back and podcast at home afterwards. What do you think?
If I'm there, the one thing I would do is I'd probably try to promote C.J. Stroud for major awards and Paris Johnson if I'm there.
Well, maybe you could, or you wear like a Buckeye Scoop T-shirt on the sideline, like a massive T-shirt on the sideline while you're coaching.
That would be fire. You want to talk about plugging the website? Stand right next to Ryan Day and whisper the plays in his ears. Run right. Massive.
You
get the logo.
You could steal the signals and tell them.
Get the logo.
Hey Ryan, let's go. There we go. Let's go.
I like it. This is a good one. Oh God, yeah. SC Buckeye, thanks for an ultra member. Thanks for the deuce. Your take on Ted Carter and Ross Bjork. Holy cow! You want to talk about upgrades? This is good. We went from like a Fiat to a Bugatti with these two guys. I mean, we went from as small and dumb of a duo. Like, I mean, the people that we've had as presidents, we hire these people that just fly over Ohio. They've never been to Ohio. They go to Cal Berkeley, Stanford, West Coast, East Coast. They hate Ohio. They never would go to Ohio in a million years. But we make them our president, and they hate being here, and they're usually terrible people at presidents. And I'd lost all hope over the last few years with Drake and the one idiot lady that we had that got fired for sexual harassment, and then we get slapshot Ted Carter.
Allegedly,
yeah, I know.
Allegedly.
I know they held the Freedom of Information Act request on that one. Then we get Ted Carter, who is as rock solid, as smart, Midwestern dude. Razor sharp. I mean, I don't know. It's like he fell out of heaven and landed in Columbus, Ohio. But I've heard nothing but amazing things about Ted Carter. So I'm very excited about the direction of Ohio State. I almost died when I saw his credentials and we actually hired him, and we didn't hire some moron from Cal Berkeley or San Francisco. So I'm over the moon. Ross Bjork, I've heard similar things. I've heard, and again, I talked to major people at the university, and he's a breath of fresh air, much sharper, much more with the times, much more engaging, dynamic fundraiser. People that matter love him, and that's all I care about. And again, they tolerated Gene because they had to. Gene went 20 years. He never built a new football facility, which, we built a facility for every other school except for every other program except for the one that makes us all the money. The shoe absolutely sucks. We haven't upgraded the shoe in years. But somehow he's a success, which I don't understand. We didn't let our parents sit in the stadium during the COVID senior day. They weren't even allowed to sit in C deck. So I'll never forgive that for any of the administration. But Ross Bjork, I think, is going to be a breath of fresh air. He crushed it on the baseball hiring the guy from Campbell. I mean, every baseball person I've talked to, including the agents that we know, said that guy is a dynamite hire. So, again, Gene hired a guy that his wife didn't even move here. Coach Mo, what an absolute moron. His wife, I mean, wouldn't you ask in the interview, well, your wife is from Texas. Would she mind moving to Columbus? He never asked that question because she refused to move. So he went back to TCU as an assistant. And so Ross Bjork had to clean up that pile of vomit, and he came out smelling like a rose, hiring a rock star baseball coach. So I am, I've never been happier with the direction of the administration in the university. So that's my take on it, Nevada. What say you?
I mean, Ted Carter might be the most impressive person that I've ever,
No.
let alone president of Ohio State. He might be the most impressive person that I've ever met. He's incredible. If you have not seen him speak, if you have not had the opportunity to read what he has to say, hear what he has to say, meet him in person, whatever, I mean, this guy is absolutely unbelievable. That hire came out of out of nowhere. I mean, we've been on a roll of Holbrook, and Johnson, and Drake, and you're literally going, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden you hire this guy. I mean, I just don't have words. I mean, it's a plus hire does not do it justice. There's got to be a higher scale or something, but he is an incredible asset for Ohio State in general, and for the athletic department in particular. And him and Ross Bjork are going to do great things. And I've never been more optimistic. And I lived through the Andy Geiger years where I loved Andy. Loved Gordon Gee, who was that was a big supporter. Seeing guys come and go, but there's never been a duo like this leading the university and the athletic program, and we're in very, very good hands.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, ask Jim Trussell about Andy Geiger. If you guys are around Trust, say, what'd you think of Andy Geiger? And he like saved Ohio State, like visionary, genius. Like those are the words that come out. Like I mean, he was the guy that took us out of the Stone Age and put us into the future. And it's like, and he hasn't been the AD since '04, but we've been kind of stuck in the mud for a little bit. But I'm really excited about these guys, and I think that they're going to be dynamic in fundraising, which again we always need. Sean Schrock, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Hey, Kirk in Nevada. Great show, like always. You feel that the '06 national championship, do you feel like in the '06 national championship, you guys should have run the ball more? Yes. I know it's crazy to say that about a Coach Tressel team. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, Tress would say that. Troy Smith would say that. We ran it on those guys. We just stopped running it. And again, I don't know if it was because we got gun shy. When you lose your best player in the first play, like that life probably ain't going to be too sweet because Ted got his leg broke. So I would have packed in the ranks and ran it the way that we were good at it. I mean when we scored, we ran it. We threw obviously Pittman had that long run for a touchdown, and there were holes there. It just we. The hardest part is, we weren't good on offense. We stunk on offense, and defensively, like we just weren't that good that year. I mean, we got exposed versus Michigan versus Florida. Again, I'm not blaming the defense because we sucked. We sucked an egg versus Florida on offense too. But Florida's offense was something that we'd never seen, and they played the perfect game of their lives, and we played a dirty, filthy game where we had turnovers and we got stopped on 4th and 1, and like when you do just like when you have this avalanche of stupidity like we had personal fouls, fumbles, I mean sacks, the whole thing, negative plays. Like you're not going to beat a good team. You could beat Purdue, you could beat Akron, but you're not going to beat like a team with equal talent. And again, that's the thing about football is like when you're Ohio State, you don't play many teams that have equal talent on your schedule. There might be one a year, maybe two. Like Oregon will have equal talent to us. Michigan did the last couple of years, but it's pretty rare. But Florida that night, they had really good players. That Urban was on the cusp of becoming the best coach in the country, and he did that night. And yeah, like I thought we should have ran it more. But again, do I blame anybody on our offensive side? No. Like do I blame Jim Tressel, Jim Bowman, the play callers? No. I mean, so we didn't play well enough. And again, it was just, sometimes in football, man, that's just life, And again, any of you guys that have ever been a part of sports teams or coached or played, like sometimes in sports, man, it just ain't your night. That was not our night. Nevada, your thoughts, Sean Schrock, again, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Hey, Kirk in Nevada, great show. Like always, do you feel the '06 in the '06 National Championship, we should have run the ball more? And he says that's crazy to say about a Jim Tressel team. Because the funny thing is in '07, we were like ground and pound city. Like all we did was run it with Beanie. And it worked. It was really good. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, it was a weird one. I mean, I actually, even in hindsight, I was at both games. I was at the '06 and '07 games, and you just had a feeling in the '06 game like we were not going to be able to stop Florida, and I think Tressel kind of got that feeling as well and felt like he needed to pass to try to keep up. And yeah, in hindsight, you had that one great drive, and you guys cashed it in all on the ground. Should you have replicated that? Hey, look, anything better than what we did, but it wouldn't have made any difference because Urban could have hung 100 on us that night, and it was
Oh
only
yeah.
because he loves Ohio State that he called
Yep.
off the dogs, and I'll forever be grateful for him for not humiliating us because they could have scored at will. They could have named their number,
Hmm.
and there was nothing you guys were going to do about that. So
Yep. I totally agree, and thank you, Urban, for not throwing 100 on the
thank
board
you.
because he could. I remember sitting on that. I was sitting on the bench like watching, and I was like, I looked at the jumbotron, and man, our guys were winded, man. Our guys were. And again, I love our players on defense, so this isn't. But I just the way that he ran the offense, I loved it because it was a lot of horizontal runs. It wasn't just running it up in the A gap, running power like we did in ISO. Like he spread the whole field, and he had speed everywhere. And again, when you run sideline to sideline on every play, it's exhausting. Because again, when you play defense, at any level of football, you're taught to run to the ball on every play. So, when you're chasing these guys that run 4-4 and 4-3, left and right and all over the field, and they're running these little bubble screens. Because again, a lot of the stuff they did, and again, this is if you want to watch a game where you want to talk about where we always say scheme is so incredibly important on offense. Go watch that game because here I'll give you guys a little hint. Florida that night did not have a single offensive lineman get drafted in the NFL, not one. We had Vernon Golston, who went 6 overall. Jay Richardson was like a 5th-round pick. David Patterson was a great college player. Quinn Pickhock was like a 2nd or 3rd-round pick. And their group of ragtag, undrafted guys killed us. Why? Because they didn't really block us. Because they would run bubble screens and speed sweeps and all the stuff that they get on the edge. And our guys were so tired that like they couldn't do anything. And again, I'm not talking trash, but I'm just saying like the way that he made us defend the entire field was something that was brand new to college football. And I watched that, and I literally remember when I watched that, I was like, I would die to learn that offense. And when he became the head coach, I was like, please, Jesus, let him retain me because I want to learn that offense. Because it's kind of like in the beginning of like the one Batman with Christian Bale, where he gets the tar beat out of him by Ra's al Ghul, and then all of a sudden he teaches him how to be like the Shadow whatever dude. Like that's what it was like. It's like when the bad guy beats the crap out of you, then all of a sudden he teaches you his ways. And when I got to learn urban stuff, I was like, well, I can see why you guys killed us. I mean, I learned like every little bit of his program and every bit of his offense and every bit of how Mickey Marotti works and the motivational stuff. Like I could see it. And again, I've talked to Zach Smith ad nauseum about it because Zach was on that staff, so he lived every moment of it. I was like, oh yeah, it was a hot feeding frenzy that night for the Gators. Mike Green, thank you for the 5. Excuse me, I took that off accidentally. Why is everyone saying that the team up north will not be punished for sign stealing? It's like they're saying it to get clicks. Well, I mean, again, Nevada is offered to bet anybody, and nobody will take them up on the action. But we talked about it again today. I'm like, guys, like, go back and read the stuff that the commissioner of the Big Ten said, the stuff that the Big Ten enacted, the fact that everybody left. Like, I mean, you line up all these things, and eventually you're just like, this ain't looking too good for the old blue bellies. But Nevada, what are your thoughts? Because again, we've gotten this more in the last like 3 days because there were some podcasts about nothing's going to happen. But again, I question the sanity of anybody that thinks that. Mike Green asks, why is everyone saying that the team up north will not be punished? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, there's a lot of really smart people that are saying that that was a story that was put out by Michigan to kind of cover, present things in their best thing before their big recruiting weekend. That they planted that story with these stupid Michigan Geppettos that just went out there and repeated it. Oh, we're in the clear. Nothing's going to happen. And that's what they did. And, that it was all an orchestrated effort by Michigan to kind of mislead people. Because everything that they're saying is a lie. That they've heard that the thing's coming, that there's going to be an apology to Connor Stallions, and this was a nothing, and blah blah blah. I mean, the NCAA has never gone to a conference in the middle of an investigation ever in the history of the NCAA, ever. And going with knowing and can prove. I mean, if let's put it this way, if that story was true, Tony Petitti should immediately resign because he interfered with Michigan's opportunity to win a national championship by suspending their coach over nothing. So Tony should his tenure should be done. And the fact that they enacted a major penalty for the first time in the history of the Big Ten, based upon the evidence that they had there, the fact that NCAA gave them the warning for the first time in the history of the NCAA, yeah, I think the story was planted by Michigan with some of their willing stooges, the same people that have been carrying all the lies. Jim Harbaugh's tight with Ward Manuel. Jim Harbaugh's going to sign the extension. They're going to fight the TR. Everything that they said has been wrong. But I think it wasn't just, they're not accidentally stupid this time. I think they were on purposely deceptive. And I think Michigan was part of it. I really do.
I totally agree. Because I mean, what's the best way? Because you have to understand like the relationship between like beat writers and recruiting writers who just fawn over their home team. Because we're just honest. We're honest. We're not owned by Ohio State like every other media entity is in this space. So how can you curry favor from the Michigan sports information people, the coach, write an article that says nothing's going to happen? And so they're like, well, I'm going to write this. I might have to eat turds later, but that's what it is. So, okay, I'll write it. I know you got a big recruiting weekend coming up, and I'm sure that the first words out of every recruit's mouth who has a brain says, Coach, is anything going to happen? What's the latest? What are you hearing? Well, I got this little thing from Maize and Blue Insider or whatever, and it said, oh, nothing will happen. Everyone's going to be exonerated. Proceed as you would. And again, that's kind of the world they live in. I mean, they like to put out statements that are patently false. Again, I've lived it. Like, when Quinn Ewers transferred out, there were people that were completely brain dead that put out patently false statements. I called them out on it, and I was right.
Austin Ward.
And they had to apologize, which again, I don't care, but I mean, at least be honest. I mean, because those guys are so incredibly dishonest that it's crazy. And Michigan's got the same types of people. So, again, I don't know. That's just kind of what they do. And again, that's why, people watch us because they want to know what's really going on and not what's being pushed out by the overlords. Iowa Buck, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. One thing that's overlooked, in my opinion, is that we have Sanchez and Alfred coming in at corner. Can you break these talents down for us? Well, I mean, they're the top 2 corners in the country. They can do everything. I mean, Devin Sanchez is the best player at a 7-on-7 tournament where it was the Super Bowl. All the best skill guys in the country played in that, and he was the best player there. I mean, I talked to the South Florida Express guys, and they're like, he is incredible, sticky. I mean, you can't get guys away from him. I mean, he's a guy that once he's clamped on these receivers, man, he is a problem. And again, those are the guys that you push all the NIL money into the front of the table for, because if you got a guy that can lock down a guy in man coverage and follow him all over the field, and he's got confidence, he's not scared of anything or anybody, then that is a first round pick. And on top of that, he's a great kid. He has a great family. They're A+ people. You can't have an potential arrow any higher than that kid does. He and Alford, I mean, they're kind of the same guys. Like, again, like we have the top 2 corners in the country. And again, Tim Walton is ascending to the throne. And again, I think, Tim Walton is fantastic at what he does. But I play a clip all the time on my Buckeye Scoop on the Twitter page where Jalen Ramsey, who is the highest paid corner in the league, or he might not be now, but he was for 10 years, probably made $250 million playing corner. He plays for the Dolphins now. He's talked about Tim Walton for 2.5 minutes about all that guy did for him, all that he taught him how to be a pro, taught him all of his technique, taught him how to study film. So I would, and again, I'll put that on Twitter when we're done. I got to go dig it up and find it again. But I would play that for every recruit for the rest of my life. Like the fact that he got, and that wasn't like Tim Walton wasn't sitting there. He just asked him about his relationship with, his favorite coach or who's the coach that impacted you the most. And like Jalen Ramsey, who is a first ballot NFL Hall of Fame cornerback, said Tim Walton changed everything. He treats me like his son. He's hard on me. He cares about me, but he develops me because that's like the hard part sometimes when you're coaching is like, you've got to strike a balance between being a caring, hey, I really care about you, but then you also have to grind these guys a little bit. You got to get these guys to develop. So you can't just be all lovey-dovey, huggy, how's everything going, little poopsykins, and then not, put the foot on their throat because you got to develop these kids. So that's a very, very delicate balance, and Tim Walton is masterful at it. So I think that they're both franchise corners, 5-star corners, and I think that it's going to be scary to see what those guys can do. And again, we're stacking them up because when you got Aaron Scott last year, you got Bryce West. Then you look at the class before that: Jermaine Matthews, Calvin Simpson. I mean, I've never seen this much talent in a secondary, and it's getting better, which is crazy. That's what I thought. Nevada, Iowa Buck, again, thanks for the 5. Says one thing that's overlooked, in my opinion, is that we have Sanchez and Offord coming in at corner. Can you break those talents down for us? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, well, I think you did a great job talking about them as players. They're also your ace recruiters. I mean, these two guys get the game. I mean, they are working it all the time. And people have been waiting for Offord to hesitate in terms of his commitment to Ohio State, and he is not faltering at all, man. He is turning up the heat right now. And those two guys, because they're such high profile guys, and when you're guys that are like that, and you can dominate in 7-on-7. All the offensive skill players know you. All the defensive players know you. You're the alpha dogs, and you're talking about Ohio State and why everybody wants to come there and be there. Man, it makes an impact. We can talk about girlfriends going to school. That's not a reason that people go, but to play with other great players, that is a reason why people go. And Offord and Sanchez are a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that. It takes balls when you're a guy like Devin Sanchez and you're the number 1 corner in the country to go play in these 7-on-7 tournaments because like those aren't fun for corners, man. I mean, you're out there butt naked. I mean, you have no help. You have no blitz. You have no safety help. It's man to man across the board, and that is you want to talk about exposing guys. Like I mean, I talked to our South Florida Express guys and they talked about Cromani McLean, who was the universal number 1 corner in the country, 5-star, big lanky kid, and he was terrible at 7-on-7. Got shredded, and number 1, Bama wanted him, we wanted him. He went to Colorado, transferred to Florida. He's a disaster in the making. But like Brandon Ennis, who is, I love Brandon Ennis because he is as fiery of a kid as there is, competitive. He's a psychopath on the field, which I think is awesome. Like he's not just some easygoing, chill dude. I mean, he's out there to kill dudes. And he was like screaming at these coaches, get him off the field. He can't cover these guys. And because again, you're going to get exposed if you're not having a good day in 7-on-7, you're going to get cooked, barbecued, and they'll figure that out. And they don't care if you're 5-star all world, because they run a lot of again these coaches, they know how to get these guys open. And some of these guys get flustered when all of a sudden you're in basically loser situations over and over again, running, pick routes and drag routes and, running into each other and that type of thing. And Cromani was bad, but this kid, Devin Sanchez is the opposite. He was dominating and he figured it out and he wasn't scared of anybody. So kudos to him. Because again, 7-on-7 is designed to make the quarterbacks and receivers look good, not the DBs, but he was the best player at the tournament, so it bodes very well for Ohio State going forward. Nevada, another good long one. We could wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
Twin Peaks got to come to the get together this Saturday, 11 a.m. till 2. Going to be a great time. Meet some other Buckeye Scoop personalities. Meet some other posters. Just have a little bit of fellowship. You got to eat lunch anyway. So why not go eat lunch there? Just go hang out, have a beer, wear your gear, get a beer, go there, eat some food, have something to drink, say hello to some people, have a great time. That's what this community is, a really special community. We want you to be a part of it. And one way to kind of extend your, kind of deepen your relationship and your connection is these get-togethers. So make sure you make a point of going there Saturday, 11 to 2, Twin Peaks in Columbus, and have a good time.
Yeah, it's gonna be incredible. And real quick, Paul Kudla is in the chat. Paul, I remember you. You probably don't remember me, but I give my condolences. I had a bunch of texts just now that you were in the chat. I appreciate you and your son so much. Your son was outside of Will Smith was my toughest competition every day, and I played against Cam Hayward. I played against Vernon Golson. I played against I mean those guys were two first rounders. Cam's a Hall of Famer. Mike Kudla was the second hardest guy I went against, and behind Will. So he was a monstrous player. I miss him. It sucks that he's gone. But what an incredible player your son was. So I appreciate you being in the chat and being a part of what we do. But your son was the baddest dude on earth, and he was the guy that I always felt bad for him because he was so much stronger than all of us. Like we all had him to chase, and he had no one to chase because he was so much further ahead of us. So I appreciate you being in the show again, and thank you to Kim and the crew. Steely, thank you guys for pointing that out to me. That means a lot to me. I appreciate you guys. With that being said, as always, thank you guys so much for all that you guys do for the show. Another huge show because you guys made it one. It was a pleasure to have you guys as always. Again, we appreciate you guys so very, very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you guys for all that you guys do. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys so very much for being a part of the show. We have an amazing community. If you want to help me out personally, and I know a lot of you guys are like, Kirk, what can we do to help? Come to Twin Peaks on Saturday. It would mean a lot to me. 11 a.m. to about 2. We'll go for about 3 hours, hang out. Me and Kim will be there. We've got my kid's birthday party that day, so we'll cut it a little early, but it'll be a good time. We've got a ton of people coming. Get there early. And just have a blast. Meet everybody from the show. Meet everybody from BuckeyeScoop.com. It's going to be an awesome time. So I look forward to seeing all you guys. The one that we did for Buffalo Wild Wings was an absolute supernova, game changer, just an incredible event. And people want to be a part of what we're doing and what we're building and kind of the Buckeye Scoop family movement. So thank you guys for all that you guys do to support this. Watching this, spreading the good word, sharing the shows. I mean, you can text the links to the shows to whoever. It all adds up. And again, we're the number one podcast by far because of you guys. So thank you for all of your support, all of your comments, all your kind wishes. Liking the show is huge. Subscribing to the show is huge. Even commenting once it's posted on YouTube is huge. So we appreciate all of that. Again, I hope you guys have a great night. We'll be back again at 7 tomorrow. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. I appreciate you guys so very much. I hope you guys have a great night. Go Bucks.